Florian, CEO of Dataiku. Welcome. So I'm a very big fan of the company, and to mention it up front, I am a very proud board member and investor in the company. Had the honor of leading the Series A in Dataiku back in late 2016, and it's been an incredible ride since. The company has been doing extremely well. It's a unicorn for what it's worth. I guess crossed that unicorn moment a couple of years ago now. The company has raised over $200 million in venture capital. Dataiku has been a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for the data science and machine learning space for a couple of years in a row now, which was a great achievement. It's been highlighted as a Forbes Cloud 100 company, and also was named again by Forbes as one of America's best startup employers in 2021. So lots of accolades, lots of traction, lots of progress. And Florian has been at this event a couple of times over the years, but I am very excited to welcome him back to hear the latest story. So welcome, Florian.
Well, thanks a lot, Matt, for having me here today. Indeed, in a very, very different setting, because I've known you first actually in a physical Data Driven New York event back a few years ago. And indeed, it's not the same vibe, but like the same energy, kind of. So I'm very happy to be here today.
Yeah. So I guess, tell us a little bit about the company. The company is, has been growing incredibly fast, and is getting better known in the US now, but started in Europe. Maybe tell us a little bit of the history.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I'm a software engineer and data scientist by trade. So yeah, I'm always surprised by what you can do with software, kind of in a sense. And we started as a small team in France back a few years ago, and yeah, we kept probably kind of a low profile, getting then. And moving to the US, to New York, as a first step. And recently, probably in the last 18 months, like lots of things accelerated a lot with new funding, getting to a unicorn kind of status, getting many Fortune 100 customers in a row. So lots of traction, I think, driven also by the fact that the data and AI market was maturing a lot, thanks to the move to cloud and some kind of like a special maturity to the market. And so right now, yeah, indeed, we are growing fast. We are 650 employees and doubling kind of on a year-to-year basis. So everything is going very fast in the world of data and AI these days, which is probably a feeling that is also shared by most of the participants here today. Everything is going quickly.
Yeah. The company is headquartered in New York, right?
Yep, correct.
And with multiple locations throughout the US?
Indeed. We have multiple locations in the US, but like not yet. For instance, just a San Francisco full office that will be opening soon.
Okay. Very, very good. So Dataiku is fundamentally it's a platform for the deployment of data science, machine learning, AI in the enterprise. I'd love to start as a level set with some context for folks about what does it actually mean to deploy machine learning and AI in the enterprise. What are some of the key use cases? Why should a company care?
I think that data and AI in the enterprise is mostly not about magical product or flying machine driven by AI or brand new product. It's mostly about actually all the business processes, probably 100 of them that you have inside a company. I think that most companies have like a clockwork. You've got like many business processes that you put together in order to create value. Possibly, well, any decent company, 500,000 of them. And data and AI is mostly about optimizing step by step each of them, making them more efficient, making them more automatic, and so forth. And that's why it's so hard. It's because data and AI in the enterprise is mostly because of this very long transformation that most enterprise will have to go through. It's probably a 20-25 years journey, and we are like 1/3 into it. And at the end of the journey, you've got something which is like data and AI being very pervasive in the enterprise, a completely new way to work. And it's all about doing that. And so it's about use cases as different as in finance, optimizing your cash management by better predicting where you will be, understanding what will be the defects you'll get from your providers or your clients. It's about better targeting your customers using data. It's about if you're into healthcare or pharmaceutical, better understanding what are the choke points in your logistics journey. It's about all of those use cases that are actually each of them kind of mundane, but which are about the value of the enterprise. And that's most of it where the value of enterprise AI is, the sum of all of those use cases.
Okay. And could you maybe paint a picture of, you know, the FANGs, right? Like Facebook, Amazon, Google on the one hand, and then, you know, the remaining 99.5% of the world, and what that means in terms of people's abilities and companies' abilities to deploy machine learning and AI.
Yeah, indeed, that there is a perspective that the FANGs are ahead in terms of data and AI, or are actually essentially AI company, whereas the other companies of the world are not. But I think it's kind of like a wrong picture of like where the world should be at the end. It's mostly for the enterprise to understand that, yeah, they should move away from this position of fear. Like today, most enterprise fear data and fear AI in a sense. They have this fear of like being late. They have the fear of not having the skills inside the organization. They've got the fear of the complexity of data and AI, like just because of the number of things, number of systems you need to put together in order to get anything done. And so it's mostly about, for the enterprise, to build the kind of systems and platforms and processes so that they can start get things done at a larger scale in order to actually essentially make data and AI their new normal. Because actually what Facebook and Google are about, and essentially lots of new digital companies, is that they just consider that data is AI is one of the key things, or like key aspect of their day-to-day operations. It's like the blood in your vein, and essentially that's where most companies needs to get to. And so indeed, in order to get there, the Google and the Facebook of the world, they build open source projects, they hired lots of data scientists and data engineers and so forth. It was like very, very costly projects actually to do so, possibly dozens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, in order to build those. But like for most of the companies of planet Earth, the journey won't be the same, meaning they won't spend 200 millions or 500 millions in order to build from scratch a data and AI platform, just because it's not realistic. They've got better things to do, actually. And in order to do that, actually, in order to actually make that normal for them to get to data and AI, that we build Dataiku, just because they don't have to go through all of that complexity or fears of getting things done in terms of data.
Mm-hmm. And then that's a nice, segue into the platform itself. And could you maybe talk about the fundamental ideas behind the design of the platform? So, namely, those two ideas, like one of like handling the entire life cycle of data, and two, this fundamental message of democratization of data and AI within the enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, indeed. And it's all about actually making AI simple and normal for the enterprise, meaning there is no way for the enterprise in the long term, if you move forward and put yourself if you go forward by 10 years, that you have like 5, 6, 7, 8 different tools that you use to manage the data lifecycle. It will make no sense. It will make no sense. So indeed, in order to make things simple and usable, you actually need to have mostly one single life cycle, starting from the data as it is, which is usually kind of ugly, kind of like dirty data as it is produced by systems, to get to value. And in between, you've got indeed a few logical steps, as in you need to clean the data, you need to merge data together, you need to understand the business problem, you need to build predictive models. Sometimes you need to build more metrics, you need to apply machine learning, you need to move that in production and operationalize it. So you've got AutoML, MLOps, data preparation, all of those keywords, but like ultimately, the AutoML or data preparations or MLOps, from the perspective of the business users, are just keywords. They don't bring value by themselves. What brings value by itself is actually the ability to get from data as it is to the answer of a business problem. And that's the first design principle of Dataiku, is that like we try to actually get the users through this full journey. The other principle of design is that indeed, in order to do data, you can't be alone, meaning there is a need of a collective awareness around data, because people, meaning there is no single hero on data, like the team is usually the hero. And so you need to actually empower business analysts and actually most business folks around data, just because you don't have, like there are not enough data scientists in the world to solve all the data problems we have. And so it's mostly about actually bringing together the data scientists and the data analyst or the business analyst, and making them work together on those large complex problems that you bring value. And so we also build a platform with this kind of like crazy idea that it could be a platform for data analysts, so very visual, but like also appealing for coders, meaning people doing Python or R on an everyday basis. And that's the other kind of like design principle of the platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much this idea of like it takes a village, right? And there's a very strong collaboration layer across Dataiku. I mean that's been the case for from the beginning. So that I mean, very practically, data engineers, data scientists, data analysts, but also business folks can all work together on one platform. There's like a history of previous experiments and projects around ML. So the concept of a system of record, and very practically, if you're like the head of you working on a data project and you have like folks in Chicago and Texas and London, that's one platform where you can collaborate with everyone, right? Is that a fair way of
yeah, it's a fair way, which is, I think, especially important these days, just because collaboration has never been harder or easier, depending on your perspective, with COVID and remote work. And so indeed, you have this need. Essentially, we build Dataiku from the frustration of the lack of collaboration between business stakeholders, data analysts, and data scientist teams that were very easily operating in silos instead of collaborating. Like, I give you an order, you send me an email, and I'll try to actually understand what you mean by this email and build you maybe a model or a metric. It's not a proper way actually to collaborate. It's actually a way to actually extract value instead of creating value. And that's why we build a platform where indeed, essentially, you can centralize and see this as teamwork and build step-by-step pipeline together as a team. And this way, actually, way better articulate and understand what's happening. That's also the other big pain in data these days, is that most people don't actually understand what is happening or where the data is coming from, what this particular data transformation or machine learning model meant. And it's also a big challenge for data these days, because it's getting out of control if you don't actually have the good practice in place.
Great. And as we're starting to get some questions in the Q&A, there's one question from Alan, which is exactly where I was going to go next. Maybe help us paint the picture of the space and where Dataiku fits in. There are names that folks may know, like Databricks or DataRobot. Where does Dataiku fit in?
Yeah, indeed. I guess having data as the beginning of the name is very, very common among data company. I understand. First, Dataiku is like the one with the bold perspective of having AI in the middle of the name, which is, I guess, a very bold positioning.
And by the way, since folks are always asked, so is Dataiku, do you want to just maybe from Snow, don't know, I don't know what an IQ is?
An haiku is a small haiku with an H. Is actually a small Japanese poem in 3 verse. It's like typically very small and meant to actually mean a lot, but like with not so much. And indeed, the idea was to actually have something that was not meaning. At the end of the day, companies such as the Databricks of the world are mostly about infrastructure and actually helping you put data in a given location. So essentially, between the walls, you need the data to be. And you had a company like DataRobot are mostly about automating and especially the ML part of the process, and meaning the auto ML part of the process. And I think that Dataiku is mostly about kind of like boosting the creativity and the inventivity of as many people as possible inside the organization. Because I think that's where the challenge is actually is, like you need to actually use data in order to empower people, and not just with reports or new charts or whatever, but like by putting people in charge so that they can use data to build something new. And I think this creativity part of data is possibly what will make and well, what will make this field interesting in the next few years.
Very good. And still on the ecosystem front, and also a question in the Q&A. It's actually a very timely conversation today because you just had an important announcement earlier today about the relationship with Snowflake. Do you wanna expand on that?
Yep. Yeah, we started actually to work with Snowflake a few years ago just because of building integration with the product, but like we're also more directly discussing with them a few months ago, especially as they announced Snowpark, which is a way within Snowflake to further expand the capability of the platform by enabling not just SQL, but also Java or other programming languages inside the platform. And I think it really helps us to actually think about new ways to leverage Snowflake and Dataiku together, because as I explained, Dataiku is essentially about end-to-end, meaning the idea that you could do everything end-to-end, from data preparation to machine learning to moving things in production. And so working with the teams at Snowflake, with those new evolution of the platform, we were able to build new capabilities together and also build further plans in the future. And here now also working on deeper partnerships with Snowflake as a platform. And definitely it's an interesting step for us. And as one example, Snowflake is for instance, Dataiku is, for instance, accessible actually directly from Snowflake through their partner portal and the partner code, meaning that you can very easily, in a few clicks right now. And so because all of you are behind your computer, you can actually do it right now. Like, don't leave the room, but you can actually click and get a Dataiku instance, and meaning a data science environment directly connected on your Snowflake instance in a few clicks. And from there, you can actually indeed do lots of things that were very costly or complicated to do in the past, meaning a few years ago, doing all those heavy lifting of being able to do ML on a few gigabytes of data was possibly taking a few days to any seasoned data engineers. Today, you can actually do this same kind of achievement in a few clicks. And I think this kind of flexibility is key for the enterprise in order to actually get to the next steps and actually deliver on value with data in the future.
And there is a version of Dataiku, like a newish version of Dataiku, that is very easily accessible for folks, right? And affordable.
Yes, we released an online version of Dataiku Online, that is fully self-service and very easy to access and leverage for folks. And it starts as something that you can use as an individual, then as a small team. And we meant it as a way actually for anyone to start discovering or delivering value from data science, even if you're a team or a company of 10, 15 or 20 people. You can actually start doing things quicker with in terms of data science thanks to this product.
Okay, very, very good. So just to close, and then we'll take some more questions from folks. I'd love to maybe take a step back and talk about what you have learned. You've been running this company for 8 years now, and I've had first-hand experience in deploying all this project in some pretty large and impressive companies. What I like, if you pick like 2 or 3, and you had a piece in TechCrunch about this that I invite folks to take a look at. Maybe like pick like 1 or 2 or 3 of those lessons and how they have informed the roadmap for Dataiku, especially the new release, which is Dataiku 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. What we learn over the time is that it actually takes lots of energy and will to fill the gap between technology and business objectives. Meaning you've got technologies such as our statistical concept or concept of machine learning, like what-if analysis. So yeah, it's in any textbook for 10, 15 or 30 years. It's well understood and so forth, but like it's just a statistical concept. But at the end of the day, if you want to actually bring this technology into the end of the business, you need to carefully build user interface so that the business user understand that it's a way for them to actually understand if AI is doing something that makes sense for them. And so building this bridge between the business will, the business intention of I have knowledge, I want to check, I want to embed AI into my decision making, but I need to be able to use that knowledge in order to check that AI is delivering value, is something, this bridge, this gap is something that you need to bridge with user interface and technology. And so actually it takes time and willingness to actually bring people there. And so in Dataiku 9, we built specific interfaces for that to enable business users to be able to check and make better testing of models. We also added, for instance, capabilities such as machine learning assertions, which is a very old idea. It's the idea that you have intrinsically business knowledge, having an understanding of what's happening in your company, that you want to be able to use when building a machine learning model. It's a very simple idea. It's like as old as like, yeah, I remember like 20 years ago, it was something that we were already discussing. But in order to make it happen, you need indeed to facilitate for business users the ability to just write those rules so that when a data scientist is building a machine learning model, those rules are actually checked. And that's where actually the value comes, because if you don't actually build the process so that it happens and have the platform so that it happens, it never happens in practice. And so with Dataiku 9, we actually learn from the behaviors and like all the things we learn from delivering data science projects in order to further actually fill that gap between the technology and its use by business stakeholders in order to give their opinion, voice their opinion, and also use their business knowledge in order to help data science in a positive way.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, let's take a couple of questions from the group. One from Matt: how does Dataiku think about sensitive data? For example, in financial services or healthcare, where data privacy and regulation are critical, does Dataiku integrate with tools such as encryption or differential privacy?
Yes, yeah, we do integrate with a few of those tools, meaning first natively, but also with a specific integration. Especially in terms of differential privacy, we work with a couple of promising companies in the sectors on promising tools, because indeed I think that it's part of the answers in order to deliver value in those sectors. From what we observed, in some use cases, it's not machine learning per se, or the performance of machine learning models that is the choke point in order to deliver value. It's the ability to actually meet the regulation constraints. meaning literally you spend more time checking models and auditing models than actually deploying models. And indeed, we think that our platform helps and will further help also in the future in order to actually get more productivity in those sectors.
Great. And then one last question before we switch over to Dave, and maybe that's a question that would lead it to a long answer, but maybe you can highlight a couple of things. So a question from Alan Smith, interested in your growth journey, the decisions you took about growing, choices about the move to the US, and how you match your original vision for your software to the markets you were chasing. So, indeed, probably a long story, but like any highlights here that comes to mind.
I think that it's when you try, at least the way I see the journey of a company and a technology company, it's mostly about trying to indeed deliver the value and solving the problem you intended to solve in the first place. And in our case, the problem is about democratizing AI, further helping people to use their ingenuity in order to build more things with data and AI, making it normal. And literally speaking, where are the treasure troves of data and AI? Where are the people having the will to do more with data and AI? I must admit, and it will be painful, but indeed, it's in the US. And I say that with a little bit of my original accent. And so indeed, as a technology company, indeed, it's a natural journey actually indeed to get to the markets where you've got the kind of traction, but also the kind of ambitions from your customer that help you actually build a better product.
Okay. Well, that feels like a wonderful place to end. Thank you so much for coming back, telling us the story. Congratulations on all the progress. It's been thrilling to be a part of it as an investor. So really appreciate it. And we hope to have you back at this event sometime soon.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm looking forward to hearing Dave's interview.